So you need to understand what a Hegelian dialectic is. So let's look at, let's go to 3-theology real quick. 3-theology is, I don't think I put it. So number 1, sovereignty. It's God's job to save. Number 2, urgency. It's your job to share. Number 3, responsibility. It's their job to believe. That is 3-theology. And I should probably put it in one slide somewhere. So if I were to take a new slide and put dot number 1, bam, and then dot number 2, urgency, bam. And I'm doing this on purpose because you need to understand what they're trying to do here. There's a technique that they're using that you need to understand. Number 3, it's their job to believe. Now, what's going on here is, make this bigger. There's a Hegelian dialectic here. And this is premise number 1. This is not a premise. This is a Christian responsibility. And it is presented moralistically. All right? That's your limbic hijack right there. Okay? That's your limbic hijack. And your premise number 2, okay, is this. So that's what you need to understand. This is a Hegelian dialectic. Premise number 1, premise number 2. And I'm going to take this one and I'm going to change the font color to make it fade out, because that is just limbic hijacking. That is limbic. Every Christian knows about the Great Commission, that we need to tell other people about Jesus. We all know this. So what they do in their Hegelian dialectic is they throw in a moralistic thing to lock you in moralistically to what they're saying, because epistemically it's not sound. Now, in a Hegelian dialectic, there are 3 things. So the third conclusion, okay, or the synthesis is what we're going to call. So this is actually the thesis of sovereignty. And then we have the antithesis of responsibility, or sometimes like they'll call it free will. And then the synthesis is mystery, tension. Now this is this is not typically synthesis. This is not typically how a Hegelian dialectic goes. And let me explain what a Hegelian dialectic is so that you know what they are doing to you. Okay? In a Hegelian dialectic, sorry if this is too small, but it's a concept developed by German philosopher George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. It forms the foundation of his philosophical system known as Hegelianism or Hegelian philosophy. The dialectic method is a way of understanding the development of ideas and historical processes through the interplay of opposing forces and concepts. At its core, a Hegelian dialectic involves 3 main stages. The thesis, number 1. This is the initial idea or proposition representing a particular concept or viewpoint. Antithesis or antithesis. The antithesis is the negation or contradiction of the thesis. It opposes the original idea, often arising due to shortcomings or limitations of the thesis itself. Synthesis. Through the clash between the thesis and the antithesis, the new idea or resolution emerges, known as the synthesis. The synthesis incorporates elements from both thesis and antithesis, overcoming their contradictions and forming a higher, more developed concept. The process doesn't stop at synthesis, it becomes the new thesis, and the cycle continues. This continuous dialectical movement leads to what Hegel called the dialectical progression of history, or dialectical idealism. According to Hegel, this process of dialectical development governs not only ideas and philosophical concepts, but historical events and societal changes. Hegel's dialectic has a profound impact on the development of Western philosophy, influencing various thinkers and movements throughout history. It also played a significant role in shaping political and social theories, particularly in the fields of Marxism and critical theory. Wokeism. However, it has been widely debated and criticized, and various interpretations and adaptations of the dialectic have emerged over the years. So, Hegelian dialectic, which you need to understand, thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Those are the three parts of a Hegelian dialectic. What they are trying to do here. And let me give you an example. An example of what this would be. Let's say you have feudalism and the bourgeoisie, and that feudalism is the thesis, the bourgeoisie is the antithesis, and then capitalism is the synthesis. Okay? So, and if you look up examples of this, you may find a lot of them unnerving or even offensive or very grating against how you would see things. Okay? But in a true Hegelian dialectic, there is actually a synthesis. In a true Hegelian dialectic, there is a synthesis. But what they do here, what the Calvinists do with three-dot theology, okay, is they have the thesis, the antithesis, and then there is no synthesis. It's just, and I'll tell you what the synthesis is. This is so slick how they do this. And this is moralistically presented. Again, so what that means is that there's limbic hijacking tied into the synthesis. In other words, they will present the thesis and the antithesis, the sovereignty and the responsibility, or sovereignty versus free will, which, by the way, the Bible never frames things that way. But they will present these two. They will frame things in those terms of that thesis and antithesis. And then they will say there's tension and there's mystery, and if you claim to have it figured out, you're prideful and arrogant and you don't know. Now you say, where did they do that? Where did they do that? They did it here and here. That's how it's done. That's where they do it. These two videos, and these two videos are reviews of these guys doing the talking. I'm showing you how they do it. So they present this false dichotomy that doesn't even need to exist in the first place. And then they're claiming if you take either side, if you think either side is more dominant, then you are arrogant and prideful. Now, you have to understand this is all a ruse to get you to let your guard down. The real result for them is not a synthesis. You're supposed to just live here in mystery and tension. No. This is all an excuse to justify their thesis. You see? Their thesis isn't going anywhere. Their thesis isn't going to be combined or watered down with anything. This is all a guise to get you to let your guard down. This is the salesman saying, look, I'm not here to sell you anything. If you just have a few minutes, if I can just have a few minutes of your time, I just have to show so many of these per day. And if you'll just listen, I'll give you this pamphlet where you can cash this in for a free cruise next year. So you get a free cruise just for listening to me. What are you doing? You're letting your guard down. It's the teenage boy who tells the teenage girl, look, I just want to be friends. He does not just want to be friends. He wants to get with her intimately, physically, sexually. But he's saying, I just want to be friends, as a way to get her to let her guard down, guarding against inappropriate sexual intimacy. It's the exact same kind of thing. This thesis an antithesis is designed to get you to let your guard down, to live here because something happens. This justifies the existence of this, which is sovereign. When a Calvinist says sovereignty, what they really mean is determinism, like hard determinism. And they'll quote things from like R.C. Sproul, people like that. And then there's a spectrum here, okay? But hard determinism it's superlative. It's just determinism. Meticulous determinism. Like James Ross, in an email to somebody, denied that being a meticulous determinist. Well, if you're a determinist, there's no other kind of determinist. But Calvinists like to divide these things up into compatibilism and determinism. What is compatibilism? Compatibilism is the idea that hard determinate, their version of sovereignty, which is hard meticulous determinism, exists, and the free will of man exists. And they both exist, and there's mystery and tension, and we don't understand, but they both exist. And they're both going strong. That is to accept contradictory things. It's rhetoriculary. And it is doublespeak.